one of the provisions was not discriminating against people with pre-existing conditions. And what ended up happening was, I think the initial rollout covered people who were under 18. So there was like a moral hazard situation where people would wait to get insurance for their children for child-only plans. And because of that, like it created the whole insurance debt spiral and escalated that. So do you think that's going to be like a huge, huge issue once it expands to everybody where you can't discriminate for pre-existing conditions?
First of all, you probably know a whole lot more about the Act than I do. It's not something I've studied.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, as my students will know, starting Thursday, we have an expert in the field coming in to talk about it, and I try to avoid lecturing on things I don't know much of anything about. I don't think that's going to be one of the major problems. I mean, the single biggest one is making it mandatory that you buy into the system. That's the one that's going to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just said it will hear it, and we should have a ruling, I think, in June from them on that. So that the mandate, individual mandate, is probably the most controversial piece of it. But I don't think the pre-existing condition one is going to be a big issue, frankly.
Okay, because I think what they did was they created like a fine if you didn't hold insurance, but it wasn't like such a large fine that it was worth getting insurance. So you just wait and pay the fine until you needed the insurance.
That's the individual mandate.
Yeah, yeah. And some insurance companies actually dropped the child-only plans because they couldn't afford it anymore.
Well, I think you can be covered under your parents' plan until age 26, which was implemented immediately. So if you're on your parents' plan, you can stay there regardless until you're 26 now. And that is law. That's actually effective a year ago.
Yeah. But supposing you don't have insurance, because I know those plans were created for people where they can't afford insurance for their whole family, so they get it only for their children. So I kind of see that as a model system for this, and maybe like this will extend now.
Yeah, interesting question. I don't know the answer to that question.
I had a question for Dr. Levy, and I was curious about just this whole international aspect of your career and how you sort of balance between, I know you said you were in the UK and obviously from France originally and now you're here, so I'm just curious about the different challenges that brings and like how the system in terms of research and everything you've done in the sciences varies from country to country.
Yeah. Actually, so it's very interesting to move from one country to another. First, because things are very different. So where I'm from, the way to do science is slightly different than here, for example. And I think here it's tougher. So, for example, in France, you can have a permanent position just doing science. You don't have to teach, you don't have to do anything, which will be the equivalent, I guess, here working for the NIH. Okay? But this is the way to do science in France. Okay? And if you're a professor, you're a full-time professor, you might have a lab, but it would just be like a small lab. So here, in fact, mainly, you're a professor and you're doing science as well as teaching. So this is, very different. You need to get grants here. In France too, but here your grants, if you don't have like how many months the universities pay,
There's some people that
they rely only on grants, right?
R01s.
Okay, yeah. So here you can have your salary that is only relying on the grants you get. That means if you don't get any grants, then you don't receive any salary. So I think that's really hard. And what happens often is people they stop doing science and do something else. But in France, your own salary, which might seem a bit amazing to you, is secure for the rest of your life. Okay? No, it's not a huge salary. And you make much more money in America doing science than you will probably do doing science in France. But it's different. One side you have on one side you have the security of a job for the rest of your life, and on the other side, it's more risky.
Actually, at University of Michigan, and I assume this is true in the science departments, not necessarily in med school, but if you have tenure, you have a lifetime job for 9 months a year. They pay the basic academic salary is 9 months. There are universities now. If I don't bring in grants, I'm going to feel it. There's going to be a lot of pressure put on me. I won't get salary increases and stuff. But you have a hard money position, and what the junior faculty have to work so very hard at is getting the grants, R01 in particular, which is the most prestigious grant, most competitive. And you have to demonstrate you're able to do that and bring in a big chunk of your salary in order to get tenure. But once you get tenure, in theory, you have a job for life, but it would be very unpleasant if you weren't being productive in terms of granting grants. There are other universities where it's not true. Johns Hopkins, which is a leading school of public health, all their money is soft money. They have to raise 90 to 100% of their salaries, and if they don't get paid.
And what is funny also is to see the evolution of the system. So when I left France almost like 7 years ago, so the policy was having many small labs, and people didn't really interact with each other. And I think that's a big mistake. And now the policy is similar to US, where we are building huge institute, putting 100, 200 scientists in the same building, and okay, collaborate, figure it all together, and it works better. It works better, and it's cheaper as well to run big institute than it is to run like many small labs. So yeah, I think basically in Europe, at least, UK, France, and all those countries, we're leading toward American system. Where we have to apply for grants. Salary might be secure for 12 months of the year, but your research will highly depend on the grant you get.
Can you talk about the process of becoming faculty, or becoming a professor, and like how overhead works and all that stuff?
Yeah. What do you want me to say?
So you're a postdoc right now.
Yeah.
Let's pretend you wanted to become faculty at the University of Michigan and you wanted to become an assistant professor.
Yeah.
How would you go about actually making that happen, and how would you get the money to start your own lab?
So first, it's many hours spent, surfing the net about the different way to get funded, and sometimes it's really complicated. You go to the website, and especially the NIH website, it's quite, to find the information you're looking for, you have to look into the details, and you have to spend, a few hours reading the paperwork. So that's the first thing, getting aware of the different way to get funded, having good connections, often it's when you apply for a grant, you need a host institution. So you need to know the people. You need to eventually get someone, agreeing on the paper to say, okay, if I receive this grant, then I can do my research in that place. That's a good start, I would say. And obviously, you need a good, a good proposal. You need a very good, strong proposal. And it's also, the more proposal you write, and the better you become at writing proposal, because you're writing in a way that the reviewer, when they read the proposal, they'll say, oh, that's something good, solid. And I think, this kind of experience, you learn it by doing it. So it's not, yeah.
So when you're interviewing at different institutions or universities where you could be a faculty member, are you going to them already with a grant in hand that you have been awarded, saying, I have this funding, can I bring it to you?
It will make everything easier, definitely. Because if you bring your money, it's a plus for the institution that will receive, a few percentage. Probably not a few, actually. I don't know. It's not 50%.
From NIH, 50%.
Wow. Okay. So they receive a lot of money. So the more money you bring, and the more welcoming they are.
But it's not a requirement to get an assistant. Okay. Okay.
No, the assumption is that during your assistant professorship,
That's
you will demonstrate your ability to get
Okay.
grants. It is, if you can bring one, it's fabulous. But
Very rarely the case. For the
certainly
minorities.
in our school, it's very rare. People get them after they get there.
So I guess another question. This is more like a general question for all of you. But so in academia, there's this mantra that says publish or perish, and so there's always this pressure on you to